So I know this is probably going to make everyone nervous that I'm talking and driving in the car, but I'm hands-free, and consider it just like you're sitting in the car with me. But anyways, I was thinking, or at least like I thought that like I would just kind of talk about what I've been working on, and like I don't know, just like over the past 8 to 10 years, I've been programming in R and programming in various languages that I've been really interested in, like systems and like microservices, right? So I've spent a lot of time thinking about how to use AWS, EC2, setting up HTTP servers with Nginx, Plumber, Shiny. I've recently ventured into integrating Rust with R so that whenever I run into performance issues, I can write Rust code. And that's Rust is actually kind of the back end of this big project that I've been working on called Redpool, or like Indexer, right? That's kind of been my tag. But to backtrack a little bit, I'm fascinated with Reddit data because Reddit is an online network that allows people to post within subreddits or forums with specific, targeted themes, right? So you can find anything from a subreddit of people talking about, like posting photos of rainbows, to people talking about current events. There's a lot of discussion about Ukraine right now on Reddit. Social movements can be tracked through Reddit, right? So if you are interested in, like protests or uprisings around the world, like for example, a while back, whenever George Floyd was murdered, there was a big uptick in the discussion about him, and then you could see the overall kind of dissipation of that discussion, and in my head that kind of signals the end of that movement, right? And it doesn't mean that that movement ending is bad. It just means that like there's less discussion about it, and maybe the discussion has moved on to something else, right? You can see people talking about stocks in real time. You can see people talking about particular brands in real time, right? And all of that information is available through their API, and it's a very liberal API, and you can pull a ton of data. Partially because one of the ways that makes Reddit so special is moderation and the ability to kind of like have distributed management of subreddit, right? Or of a subreddit, or of Reddit in general, right? So it's not like Reddit moderates the pics subreddit or the politics subreddit. Like there's someone who generated that subreddit, and then they're the moderators of that, and you can programmatically kind of do that moderation and build bots off of it. So there's a ton of information that's available, but so that's kind of like the interesting part of that information. But then on my end, I've also really wanted to be that kind of person who like can build something from the ground up, right? So if you look at like any company that you've ever worked for, there's a process by which you get customers to your site, and then the easier you can make it for them to hand over your money, the better, right? So generally there's a huge team, right? There's like your front end developers, your back end developers, because as the project grows, it becomes more complicated to manage, generally speaking, with one person. Because one person can't quite do everything. But on the other hand, I like to do everything. So So the question is like, how do you build a data product and then serve that data product to people as cheaply as possible as one person? And the way that I've done that is, but not only that, but like whenever you get into that, you need user management, you need to manage state, you need to handle concurrent connections, you need to have something that is pretty, something that is modular. You need to be able to pull and like take pieces out and put pieces in, right? So anyways, what I've been working on is kind of the process to generate that infrastructure really quickly for me. And most of the technologies that are involved are Postgres, Plumber, Rust, Redis, RabbitMQ, and Shiny, and Docker, right? So those are the big pieces. But what I have so far is, scheduled jobs, grabbing that Reddit data, and then a user interface to be able to interact with those backend systems to say like, hey, I would like to be able to purchase an analysis, or I would like to be able to have your data sent to me daily, scheduled, right? The user can kind of fill that out, and then it's done, and that whole process doesn't involve me anymore, right? It just happens. And paywall or not, I haven't quite figured that out, or how I want to incorporate that, because there's definitely like issues that I need to figure out about like distribution of this data behind a paywall, and like, right? So like for now it's just free. But anyways, so the way that it works is a user goes to my site, indexer.com, which at the moment it's not online. But I do have commands to just spin it up and down quickly as I'm testing. But user comes in, they set up an account, and then they can log in, and then they can actually view that backend system that is running and all of the data that has been generated. The data that I'm grabbing is deleted after n hours. That's a variable. But what I'm currently not doing is like storing all of that data, right? Because as I'm developing this, I don't really want to handle like the storage of tons of data or backing it up every day. So anyways, there's like global statistics that are counted. So everything that comes in is never really lost, but the submissions are cut off at a trailing date at the moment. And these, and that connection goes from you go to indexer.com, and then you go, HTTPS indexer.com, and then the EC2 server that Nginx is running on ports you to another port on that server, which is using auto SSH to connect my home server to the external server, or the gateway server, so that I don't actually have to pay for a ton of server time. Right? All this entire process is running on my computer, but you're routed to my computer from the outside world. So instead of having to pay for I would have to pay quite a bit of money to be able to have the exact same compute on AWS as I have on my internal server. And so that's why it's easier to have everything actually running inside of my house on my computer instead of on an EC2 server, and just have you or whomever just be pushed into my home. And then it to the end user, there's no difference. It's like a company's internal servers, but instead inside my house. payment is done through Stripe. I have figured out that and set up Shiny modules to handle that. The application itself does take does primarily work with Shiny modules, and it is set up so that those modules can communicate either through a backend system like Redis or through kind of like a props setup like in React, right? So you can have like a module that creates information and then it is fed into another module. Credentialing was interesting, or just like the login process. That was something that I had to kind of figure out. And then like, how do you hide particular features of the site versus like general features that like everyone can see, right? So if you log in, do you want them to see a header, or do you just want them to see that login page? And how can you selectively choose whether or not someone can see something, whether or not they're not logged in, or whether they're logged in, or whether or not they have paid you? So I've really enjoyed this process of figuring out how to set up like the entire architecture for an online business using these technologies that I'm familiar with in a way that I think is better than existing processes that I've worked with for those particular technologies. So, like for example, I have kind of a novel way of connecting Redis and Shiny that allows a Shiny user to like update backend systems through Redis, right? And then also contain the state that user generated on that site to the next visit, right? And so what happens there is like, as that UI is being generated, a call to Redis injects the last parameter that was used. And then every time that parameter changes, you've got an observe event which changes your reactive values to a list and then stores that in Redis. So every time the user changes the menu on Shiny, that is found using observe and then stored in Redis every time that change is made, or if not every time, like through a submit button or something. And that way, the next time the user comes in, they can have that state involved. But anyways, it's a lot of rambling, but it's been fun and I've enjoyed it, and I'm hoping to share the site soon. But I do kind of want to make it prettier and kind of work on the CSS and like, I don't know, add more to that back end or the front end architecture instead of building up the internals, because all of the internals are there. But now it's like, like it looks okay on desktop, but then mobile, you got some weird stuff going on. So anyways, if anyone is interested in learning about it, I'm happy to consult and kind of share that knowledge. But the repository is private because it's the first thing that I've built that I'm just like, oh yeah, no, like this is mine. Anyways, yeah. Hope everyone on LinkedIn is good. Have a great day. Bye.